Hello, sir.
Hey,
How are you?
good.
Good. Look tired?
I'm tired. She's been a long day already.
Oh, yeah, because you drove like 4 hours.
I drove 4 hours, worked for 6 hours, slept for a bit, drove 4 hours.
Yes.
So I'm feeling it today.
And now 3 ring-at games.
Yeah. Have kids, they said. It's a fulfilling life, they said.
So, heard about the Titanic fiasco.
The Titan sub, you mean?
Yep. And the poor kid who didn't want to go and his dad forced him to for Father's Day.
That is unfortunate.
But it looked like I'm an adventurer and I would do stuff like that. Like everybody knows if you want to do something fun or something like that, call Caroline. But that I would not go into that little thing. It looks like it would implode.
Well, my favorite is they pulled James Cameron on to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. James Cameron, notable builder and pilot of submarines, and has been to the bottom of Challenger Deep, which is the deepest spot on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Went on one of the news channels and was giving his opinion. And the amount of people that were crapping on him, like, oh, just because you're a director, you think you know everything. It's like, bro, this guy knows more than the guy that built the sub that blew up. But everybody just wants to be bitter.
What was his opinion?
That the guy that built Ocean Gate was insane, and there's reasons that you need to have safety in place. And with his basic comment was, in this day and age, with the level of engineering that we have, this should never have happened.
Yeah.
Right. But the more you uncover about the guy that built and kind of operated the company, the more you're like, oh, it's not a surprise it happened eventually.
That's scary. But still, nevertheless. That was one thing I would not have gotten into. Yeah. Jump out of plane? Absolutely, for sure. Go in a submarine? Yeah, not that little thing.
Yeah, no, 50-50 on a sub. I'm a hard no on the airplane.
Jumping out of an airplane, you mean?
Yeah, I'm cool in an airplane.
Yeah.
I don't need to exit it before it's on the ground.
It's fun. The moment of jumping is scary, but once you jump and your chute opens, it's fun.
And then all my pee and poo catches up and splatters me because that's what's trailing me as soon as I'm out of that airplane.
You think, but it really doesn't.
I 100% would lose control of my faculties in many ways in that jump.
Really, if you know that you're jumping, if you didn't know you were jumping, then maybe. But I think if you knew you were jumping, you wouldn't.
No.
Okay.
I'm not renowned for the amount of dreams that I have or retain. My most horrifying ones all involve falling from an uncontrollable distance. That is the epitome of the thing I would never do. You'd have a better chance of putting me on Ocean Gate 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. All righty then. I don't know if you'd fit. It's tiny.
It is tiny.
A little circle thing. I was watching my video actually not too long ago of my very first jump. And I'm like, oh, it's windy as they open the plane door. I was terrified. I didn't look terrified. I looked like I was happy and smiling and I was terrified.
Yeah.
But I did not have an accident. So there you go.
Which is hilarious because if you laugh too hard these days, you can't say that.
Having kids, that's something they don't tell you.
No, that's 100% something they don't tell you.
We could add that to one of the previous episodes.
Just the kids you got to clean up accidents for.
I've never had an accident, but definitely jumping trampolines. Got to do so a little bit more cautiously.
Mm-hmm.
So summertime is a great time to build skills. That's kind of what we're focusing on, making the most of summer, but it's also a good time just to kind of focus on skill building things. Especially because we have lots of time with our kids. And a big one, I'm actually writing a blog on this and actually check out my little summer guide because I've got some of these skills in there, but the big one is social skills.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? And I've got my list and everything that I've been writing about as well. But what do you think are some social skills kids need to learn? especially these days, because I do think it's a lost art.
I would say, so first of all, speaking as a parent who over the summer takes his children to the forest and leaves them there, they don't have a great amount of opportunities for new social skills. That said,
It's true, but there's kids that every
there's
so
kids and there's
often
other
that pops up.
people. And yeah. But it's funny. I would say the biggest thing is initiating the conversation would be one of the skills I think is probably what I would consider to be the biggest lost skill when it comes to what you want to build in the kids, especially if there's something that they want.
Yeah,
right?
that's
Like
true.
they want to meet someone or they see something cool or they'd love to take part in it. And it's like, well, just go up and talk to them. Hard no. Like as soon as the words come out of your mouth, well, why don't you go talk to them? It is like you just told them to go talk to a fire-breathing dragon. Like it's unbelievable how quickly they lose the ability to talk or think, and they just shut down. So I would say that's probably the first one that I would focus on is how to initiate. The second would be how to maintain a conversation without being weird, right? I think, and I don't mean that like as a shot at my kids. I mean it as I've seen enough kids that if they get over the hump or they're thrust into a conversation, awkward would be a generous term in terms of almost like they overthink it. Like the thing about kids that I always kind of noticed that I admired about them was their ability to just kind of settle into a situation and enjoy it, right? Whether they know the kid or they know whatever, when they're put into it, they tend to be much more relaxed. But when you tell them to think about it, so maybe that's the first thing I would say is to build social skills. It's not about presenting it to them. It's just, or getting them to do it. It's about introducing the situation and then letting them figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as parents, as soon as we say, go do this, or why don't you, it is 9 times out of 10 met with a flat out no, or the 1 in 10 time that they actually go and talk to them, they come back 30 seconds later and, well, what happened? Oh, they didn't want to talk. And then you realize, well, they went over and said, and then left.
Right.
So that would be kind of my big thing is try and create situations where they have the opportunity to build these skills without thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, teach them how, and there's an opposite end of the coin too, is I think another one, and you can stop me with your list anytime you want.
Oh, no.
I think the other thing would be creating opportunities for them to extend the invitation to someone else. So I think a lot of times parents look at it from their kids' perspective of just go do this thing, when really it could be, why don't you see if they want to come do what you're doing, right? You've got something fun. They might want to do it. Why don't you see if they want to come do it? We got a couple of kids next door at the cabin that I would say are probably the most outgoing kids I've seen in a long time in terms of just their comfort level with any group, talking to them, inviting them, becoming a part of it and moving on and not really being offended if they're not a part of what's going on. And I think that's a pretty good example of kind of just creating that relaxed atmosphere for the kids to be really comfortable with a diverse group of people and creating moments where they can have conversations or be social without thinking it as a lesson or something they have to turn. Because I think for us, we try and always look at opportunities to teach new skills, right? Like when we go traveling, like one of the kids has to figure out departure, the other has to figure out arrival.
Yeah.
Right. Where's our luggage? Where are we going? What gate? All of that. That's fine, but not every lesson can be taught that way. And a lot of times the kids begrudgingly roll their eyes because we tell them, well, we're not telling you. So if you want to go on this trip, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So you can't always do that, right? Especially in spur of the moment. So I think the big thing is just kind of encourage where you can or create opportunities where you can for the kids to naturally just kind of do it. And then try and show them that there's nothing to be scared of, right? Like if you went to a kid and say, hey, do you want to join us? And that kid said no. Cool. That kid then knows that you at least are welcoming them if they change their mind and you don't have to take it personal, right? Would be kind of the thing. So
yeah, I think that's a good one. Being able to talk and I know I've talked before about just giving kids lots of opportunities to talk to other people. And like we would always, from a young age, get our kids to ask the waitress for a container to pack up our food, right? Or things like that. And because rejection is like one of our greatest fears. And we feel that like the pain part of our brain lights up. We feel it stronger than any other emotion, that rejection piece. It's for survival. And so I think that stops kids from initiating, and you can see it. They want to, or they dig a hole. Oh, they won't want to play with me, or, it's just the fear.
They got other friends over there already.
Yeah. Or I see that all the time where, they're talking with this friend or they're sitting with them at lunch, so I can't. And I'm like, why not? You're all friends, or you can be friends with those extended friends. So definitely, I think that initiation piece is huge, and being able, and I think part of that too is being able to tolerate that discomfort, that initial one. And even thinking of, when you start dating or asking someone out on a date, right? They lose it with the text. They just rely on texts. And so it's so important to be able to have those opportunities to initiate in person, be rejected in person, manage conflicts in person. Well, and even all of those things.
Yeah, because I think part to that point, what the text removes is certainty of communication.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you intend for the tone or the message to be is completely left to the interpretation of the reader. Whereas if you're face to face and someone tells you something, you're going to be like, oh, they really mean that they, want to hang out with me or don't want to hang out with me or whatever. Like, you can't always pick that up over text. So I think that you're absolutely right. That plays a large part in the skill that they need to be able to do it face to face.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to say hard things. Mm-hmm. And like part of that, I mean, I talk a lot about emotion regulation, emotional literacy, and that's being able to talk about our feelings, which a lot of kids have a hard time doing. It either comes out behaviorally or withdrawal or, in whatever ways. And so being able to talk about how they're feeling, and if they're upset or disappointed or frustrated, and on the other side, being able to listen to that, to listen and be there, even if they feel like, their friend is telling them, I'm mad at you for this or this or this, being able to listen to that without jumping in and trying to defend myself. I see that all the time where it's throwing the blame back, and they're just throwing the blame back and forth, and it just blows up.
It could be a 2-minute conversation and just clear it up.
Yeah. So it's being able to listen and empathize with our friends. So that perspective taking and empathy is a huge piece. So I think I've kind of stacked a few in there. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, and you are. And I think an extension of that too, and to kind of put some light on the fact that, because I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this podcast is about blaming the parents. It's always the parents' fault. So to that end, to your point about texting and losing that nuance and losing that ability to have hard conversations, most parents are no longer good at that.
That's true.
Because, like, you look at business, you look at working parents, what's their number one form of communication? Email.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, and there's running jokes about it, right? Like, per my last email stands for listen effer. Like, I said this already, like those sort of jokes back and forth, because you can take it completely differently. Well, what kind of modeling is it if the parents themselves aren't comfortable having conversations like that, or modeling for the kids what it would take to have a conversation like that, or going and initiating a conversation with a complete stranger, right? And saying, hey, we'd love to have you over for dinner sometime, or why don't you pop over for drinks? It'd be great to get to know you better. That's a lost art at our age, right? At our level. So I think creating those situations for the kids is important, but creating situations for you yourself not to lose that is important as well, because otherwise, it's do as I say, not as I do. Yeah. And I've met a ton of adults that I just shake my head at. How bad are you at talking? Right. So it's just something to think about as well, right?
Well, and the modeling, I think, is going to be key for all of the skills that we talk about today. 100%. It's being able to model. And so even the blame piece too, how often do we come home and talk about our role and taking accountability, right? We come home and we complain about the guy, the jerk who cut us off in traffic, not talking about, maybe we were
ignoring the fact he was signaling on for 15 minutes.
Something, right? Or the jerk at work and your boss or people at the restaurant. Like, we're just always complaining, but never really talking about our accountability and things. Totally. We usually feel shame around that or whatever it is, and we hide it under the carpet. But our children never then are learning that opportunity too. And even in our interactions with our kiddos, we're quick to blame I even just saw it today, actually, where there was parents getting mad at the kids and just blaming the kid, but not listening to the kid and what was going on for them.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to, well, I mean, if we can listen to them and put ourselves in their shoes, we can show a little bit more understanding, but it's just blaming them and shutting them down, and then kids are never learning, right? And then it out comes behaviors.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw was a screw you sort of behavior afterwards. And so that's a bit of a problem.
Not our kids, right?
Not our kids.
So
no. No. So that listening, that perspective taking is really important. And with that perspective taking is the empathy as well, right? Even if we don't agree with the other person, we have our side. It's so important, right? Seek to understand before you're understood, right? That's so valuable for kids to really take that. I mean, there's the basic ones like sharing, right? Turn taking, losing. I think that's a really big one. Being able to lose gracefully and not, I know one of our children, I won't say who, but one of our children is so competitive, and I feel bad. I'm a bad model around this because I know I am also very competitive.
Oh, is that new?
But she gets quite upset. And so I'm like, and I can see it when like friends are over and things where, well, I'll give it away, but I'll just say there was a kid who was many years younger and clearly like couldn't read very well. And our daughter was very much like, come on, like, what's wrong with you? Or just like kicking butt, right? It's just like when you watch a hockey game and like little Timbit guys and one team, it's like 12-0 and they're just digging in and just kicking it to this poor team. And it's like, oh, give them a break, right? So yeah, it can be hard, or just not wanting to play games. So yeah, those normal things, flexibility, cooperation, compromising, conflict resolution, those are all really important. Constructive feedback is so important. And I know we've talked about that one.
Well, and accepting feedback as feedback and not as you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think, and I get it, like it took a long time for me to learn that feedback, even if you don't want to hear it or you don't agree with it, there's always something useful you can take away from it. Right? Even as you get older, even if it's the guy that gave me feedback doesn't know what he's talking about, you've still learned something. Right. But in for the most part, teaching the kids that, you know, if you can put ego aside, and they don't know about that sort of stuff, but if you put it aside and you're able to say, well, to your earlier point, what's my role in this? Right. Then that's an important lesson, because you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to even make a change because of it. But if you're able to separate the feedback from yourself and look at it objectively or relatively objectively, there's always something useful you can take away from it. Always. And
especially in interpersonal relationships, right? Because if we get defensive, not only are we not learning anything, we've disrupted our relationship. And we're not ever listening to what the other person actually needs, right? And we keep shoving what we think, well, it's usually what we need, down the other person's throat, and we're not actually addressing. And so when we come back to these interactions, I usually do like an infinity symbol. We come back because we've got some attachment need. I come to you for something. Maybe I need some comfort or support or whatever it is, but it's disrupted because you haven't heard me and you have in your mind what you need and get defensive. And so we just kind of go in this loop to loop and never actually get anywhere. So, you know, I think that's huge. And it's important moving forward too. Like now is the time for kids to be able to take that. And I see this sort of rejection sensitivity, you know, constructive feedback sensitivity that's growing more and more and more. And so many parents are feeling like, you know, I don't know how to help my kid because anything I say, they're just freaking out. And so then I don't say anything, but then these kids aren't learning. So, I mean, I don't want them to learn how to take that when they're 25, first time they're getting a job and they lose their mind, right? Because their boss is now just, given them. So I think that kind of goes back into all of that. I do think, you know, nice, and maybe this will be a point that you argue with me on, but there's that book, nice guys finish first, where I do think, I think you've called me a pushover before, or something like that. Maybe not a pushover, but people will take advantage of me. And I know we've talked about this in the podcast, but I do think taking the higher road, and being able to acknowledge the situation, and acknowledge the other person's perspective. Again, I guess it all comes back to listening and being empathetic, right? And not defending ourselves when we have to defend ourselves. Absolutely. Because assertiveness is another skill, and I'll be talking about that. But I mean, thinking about what's the most important thing here. So for example, really simple for younger kids, it's what's more important, winning my game or playing the game that I want to play, or making sure that this play date ends happily and my friend still wants to be friends with me. As they get older, it can just turn into, right, who's right or wrong. I know I get into that too sometimes. Who needs to prove each other right? Or is that more important, me being right or us still loving each other and having a good friendship, right?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that part. I think where we differ is the line for you on when it's time to be assertive and the line for me on when it's time to be assertive are dramatically different. I 100% agree that, taking accountability, like it all comes down to taking accountability,
really,
right? At the end of the day. And yes, listening, yes, hearing, yes, trying to see your role in it, see if there's a way to solve it. But after that, should it persist or should the person continue to push the issue? That's where my line is. Where your line's a bit further down the road, which is maybe 3 or 4 of those exchanges to try and get to the point, right? But it's the same skill. It's the same, and I agree with you entirely on both sides of it. It's just, and you also have to take in mind when I'm saying that to you, we come at it from 2 different perspectives. I typically, when I'm communicating with someone and get into that situation, need to be assertive faster to take control of the situation because of the nature of my job. You are typically having those conversations running your own business under your own name. So what is important in that situation is dramatically different than what's important to me. And when you tell me these things, and I'll get to how this translates to the kids, but when you tell me these situations, I immediately leap to, no, if I worked for Caroline Inc., my job would be to protect Caroline Inc. from this sort of stuff. And I would simply say this at this point. You don't have that luxury because as Caroline of Caroline Inc., you can't tell someone to pack sand without potential repercussions. I'm not burdened with that, right? Because of the situation that those.
Well, psychologists are held at higher ethical standards. 100%. And so,
So for kids, though, the trick with that lesson is understanding the difference between those two and understanding, being really clear for themselves on what is acceptable and what is unacceptable, because it's going to be different for everybody, right? How Maya would react in that situation is dramatically different than how Willow would act. And so, but the lesson is still the same, which is you need to understand where your comfort level is. You need to understand what your end goal is. And you need to understand when that line has been crossed and what you're comfortable doing to take control of the situation. Because if you don't, and again, this comes down to what they need to really understand and be comfortable with. If you don't know where your boundaries are in terms of how you will let other people treat you, because only you can control how you react to how they treat you, you need to be really honest with yourself. Am I okay with someone berating me and I just simply take it? That's not the same as, right, trying to take accountability and hear the other side of it and negotiate a common understanding. And those 2 different things. Someone coming at, like using the example of someone emailing you, you had it where the email wasn't looking for a resolution. The email was simply attacking you. That's where I'm like, no, you don't stand for that. You go back to them and you tell them that they can take their keyboard and they can insert it somewhere uncomfortable, right? Whereas if
I would just not respond.
Totally. But on the flip side, if you knew that what they were saying was out of frustration about the situation, they've contacted you and they really are asking for assistance, they're just potentially not communicating it properly, again, it's understanding the difference and trying to act appropriately, right?
And keeping my emotions in check.
Totally.
And so that's the key piece, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, this goes into so many different things. When do we just walk away and not even engage? When do we stand up for ourselves and be like, I'm talking about kids
100%,
now, right?
100%. And it's additionally hard when it's girls.
Yeah.
I have the benefit of being a shaved primate when people look at me. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I push back on something, and mine is different. I have to ratchet down the strength with which I respond, or else people always read it as being overly aggressive because of how I look, right? And people, oh, calm down. Well, I'm not angry. I'm simply asserting myself. For women, and I've seen it a million times, the same pushback that I would give at the same tone is, man, she's such a bee. Why is she so difficult to work with? This is and so it's incredibly important to teach our girls. It's a different lesson for boys, but to teach our girls how to stand up for yourself and how to do it in a manner that if someone is to misinterpret it as you're difficult or you're a problem or whatever, how do you deal with that? Right? Because there is the added baggage for girls. I've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
Right. And it's unfortunate because a dude saying, F off, it's going to be rude. I was just talking to a friend about this at coffee a couple weeks ago, where it's so much different because what is seen as assertiveness and take charge and that go-getter attitude in a man is seen as a problem child in a girl, and they're dismissed and they're, and it's just not fair. So how do you learn the proper communication style to be assertive and take charge without being seen as a problem? Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, sorry, bit of a sidestep, but it's still part of the same. Like the kids need to learn that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a fine line. I should have written all my other ideas. Yeah, I got to bring in paper and pen because I always have a million ideas and they kind of go. So yeah, that assertiveness piece is important, but knowing also when just to walk away, right?
When they're on the ground. Yeah. No, I'm kidding.
Getting out of the blame. I think too, knowing a big one that I've been working a lot with, especially in my tweens and teens, has been knowing. So I kind of do this, and I think I've talked about it before, but almost like, your gas gauge on a car. So up to the right where it's full, those are your green friends, right? You feel energized. You love hanging out with them. You feel good with them. Every time you're together, it goes positively. And when you're leaving, you don't want to leave because you had fun. It was great. Those are the friends we want to nurture, right? On the other and the empty, those are the red friends. Every time it's drama, there's something negative, we dread going to see them, like trying to find excuses not to go. And then when we do, we're like, why did I do that? Like, why did I just go and waste my afternoon? They're soul sucking. They take, all of our energy away. And then in the middle is yellow, where sometimes, right, it goes good. Sometimes it's not. So I think for kids to recognize who those friends are and where do I actually focus my attention? Because I think kids get caught up in wanting to be liked, which is a fundamental need. Absolutely. Not wanting to be rejected. Again, another fundamental need, but sometimes we focus on the wrong relationships. I just think of our older girl, I see her friends who drain her quite a bit. And, but she's waiting for them. And that's the other thing, like not waiting around. I think that goes to the initiation piece too, is not waiting for other people to initiate. Like, let me make my own plans and would love for you to come along with that, but not waiting around all weekend for that call. Because that's hard. And then, and I see sort of the fairy weatherness and what's the word, like finicky, not finicky.
Fair weather.
Yeah, fair weather. There's another word though, shallow, but just looking for the better opportunity, right? Or the cooler kid. So I'll hang out with you for now, unless something better. And I see that often. And so it's being able to, identify who are those friends that I want to nurture those relationships and put that time in and deal with some of the drama, if there is any drama, but then taking control of their own sort of destiny too. Because I think that they really can fall prey to.
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million. I think it's a matter of looking at what you're worried about in your kids,
All
looking
the
at
things.
looking at the struggles. I mean, I can pick a million, like knowing how to answer a phone. Oh
Oh,
my goodness. Kids
knowing how
do
to talk on a phone if you do pick it up
well, yeah.
it's
I
unbelievable
can't
to
tell
me.
you how many times I've heard our girls just pick up the phone and not say anything.
Yeah.
Now at least they know to say hello. But there was a time they would just pick it up, expecting the other person to just start talking. And I'm
Which
like,
in a
well,
way
what are
is
you doing?
kind of a power move. Like when you think about it, it's kind of the other person's like, hello.
I think part of the problem is they just assume it's a telemarketer because nobody ever
Yeah.
calls the landline ever. Like, you know, so I think that's part of it. So that they're just listening. Is it just like an automated thing? But yeah. And then being able to say, may I ask who's speaking, or, oh, hold please, instead of just dropping the phone. Mom, I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Just get it. Right. Like there's so many different things.
Loading a dishwasher. Is that part of this conversation?
No. Social
Vacuuming
skills.
without being asked?
No. Social skills.
Telling your friends that you vacuumed without being asked. Is that part of social skills?
No. But that thoughtfulness,
Yeah.
Gratitude.
Well,
how do we nurture relationships? I think that's a huge, 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 huge one. How do we actually nurture it?
Well, and what I think is lost on a lot of kids these days is that, like any relationship, it takes work.
Yeah.
Right? Like you'll go through phases with friends where you see them a lot or you don't see them a lot. And then as you get older, but life gets in the way and partners get in the way and kids get in the way and all your commitments get in the way. So it becomes even harder as you get older. And if you don't understand the investment you need to make in friends, you're going to find yourself later in life wondering why you don't have any. Right. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the kids, we've talked about this before, where the kids tease us that we're not social since COVID. They're not wrong, but we weren't the only ones either, right? So it's interesting to see which people in our age group are coming back and trying to be social, right? Which ones never stopped being social, and which ones just don't care anymore, right? Because that's a skill. Like you have to understand what it takes, just like a marriage or a work relationship, or if you have, there's inputs from both sides that are needed to make it work. And I think kids, perfect example is, you know, kids expect that immediate response. And if it's not there, well, it's not worth my time. Well, come on, right? Yeah. That's not exactly how it works, right? Yeah. And just, I think to your point about empathy is just understanding how to potentially put yourself in the other person's shoes without knowing what they're going through yet. And I mean that from an initiation standpoint of, you know, you text someone that they don't respond right away. What do you take that as, right? Watch any kid you know, they take it as a personal insult.
Yeah.
Why are they not responding? Come on, you need to respond. I emailed you, like, what are you doing? Like, I text you. Well, they could be doing chores, or they could be in the shower, or their parents could have made them do something, or who knows? But they don't have that ability to see like that, right? So teaching them that just because it's your priority doesn't mean it's going to be responded to with priority on the other side. You need to be okay with that, right? So, and I think a lot of it comes down to just, again, being comfortable in who you are and being comfortable making your own decisions, and then, but being open to other people being a part of it if they can.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah, I was going to go for a bike ride, but I couldn't find anybody. But if you want to come, let's go. Right. That's not how it operates now. It's, I texted you to go for a bike ride and you never responded, so I didn't go. Right. Or I did something completely different. Well, come on.
Or I've called somebody else and now you can't come.
Exactly. Yeah,
Which just happened.
Because we can't mix friends together, because Lord help me if the group grows, right?
Yeah.
Like, whereas back when we were kids, when we were growing up, dude, the amount of groups that kind of blended together, like, it didn't matter. You'd show up at a house party and there'd be people you kind of knew, but by the end of the night, you're all hanging out and having a good time. And if you saw them again, cool. If you didn't, cool. Like, whatever. But yeah, there's this weird demarcation point between relationships, it seems, which is odd to me.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to the power of phones, and just get rid of them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole other piece, just phones and social media and everything. It's just a huge piece, and has taken away so many social skills and even empathy. Kids aren't reading as much, and they get huge amounts of, you know, empathy development through reading fiction stories, and kids just aren't doing those things anymore. So
why bother? There's TikTok dances to record.
I know, like, it's just unbelievable. So, but even just basic manners, and for me, like, you know, remaining open, remaining curious, inquiring about others, like genuinely showing interest. I guess even if you're not, try to be as genuine as you can. Just saying, how are you doing? How is your cat doing? Oh my gosh, how are your parents doing?
Well, and listen, it's there's a two-parter to that,
yeah.
right? Like,
well, listening was one of my first ones I said.
So you're right. So make sure that you're hearing what's being said, to file that away for next time. Because if you came back, if you come back and you expressed a follow-up to what you had asked before, that person is 9 times out of 10 going to be blown away that you would remember a fact like that. And then to think the follow-up is unbelievable. Right? Yeah.
But not like Dwight Schrute, where he's got his little cue card. Hello, John. How is your homosexual son who is Black doing? Right? Like reading off of his card. Like, no, that's not it. Yeah. It's just...
Well, it's genuine, right? Being present, being genuine.
Yeah.
100%.
Do we miss anything? I mean, I think we could go on and on and on. No. But it starts with us modeling first and foremost. Respect, initiating, maintaining, inquiring, empathy, openness. We have to model that.
And then being present and genuine. If you're in the relationship, be in the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. If you're in a conversation, be there.
And creating opportunities. So I would say it can take some work for us, even with teenagers. Maybe set something up, set up a barbecue for kids to come over, just to give your kids some opportunities, get them involved in camp. Well, it's probably too late to sign them up now for camps if you're listening to this right when we're going to be talking about this, but clubs and sports and all of those things can be really important. And if they're really struggling, I would say collaborate with them. What is one pro-social skill that you could work on to nurture this relationship or these relationships when you go into, this birthday party or this play date or whatever that is. Yeah.
And for those that want to model Caroline's approach, make sure that if you're setting up one of those barbecues or social interactions, you endlessly ask about which cute boys that she wants to invite, because that always makes the conversation go super well.
It's fun with tweens. Like, who's your crush? And then they all, with those play dates though, like I think being there with older ones that they don't want you around, but I do have a little guide that will talk about, how to make the summer amazing. And I have a little section on the social skills, and one of those, and I'll have another blog too. When it's done, I will put the link in just around some of the social skills for teens, especially because they still need to be working on them probably more than anybody as they transition to adulthood. But, sometimes we have to be there if we see things going sideways to redirect the situation, just so it doesn't totally crumble and fail, and privately sort of give that feedback to you. But those are, other pieces. But I think at the end of the day, every child's different. So just really reflect if your kiddo could work on one thing this summer that you could really help them master, what would that be? And again, it would start with your modeling, but then also making sure that they have those opportunities in practicing. I hope that they heard you. I just realized I didn't change the mic to also hear you.
It's okay. My voice transcends. This is your power grab at the podcast, isn't it?
No.
This is you trying to take control of the podcast, isn't it? Isn't it? Oh, yeah. Now they can hear me to say goodbye. I'm on to you.
I usually have it turned the other way so I can see that side. Or maybe not. I don't know. But
likely story.
You had a good answer. I hope it can be heard.
I had an amazing answer. Why? Number 1 parent of the year. You, because of this little snafu, are number 2 parent of the year. Bring it in. You did it.